Thank you, Takeru Uchiyama, for his speech. Now from the government, I'd like to call upon government whip, Galas.
Mr. Chair, we think coming from the government side that are things better left unsaid. In this debate, I'd like to ask two questions in order for us to adjudicate this. First, how should the government handle the end of the world? Should they disclose it or not? Second, what is the nature of human being? How will they actually react given this information? Now let's first tackle the first issue. How should the government handle all of these things? Opposition side said that disclose it because people would have subjective reactions anyway. Exactly the kind of reason also why the government is actually having classified information in the present situation because of this kind of reasoning. Because we concede that people have subjective reaction, and we're afraid that it might actually cause chaotic situation. That's why we think that it is the same stand that the government is taking in the present situation with assuming that we'll have this kind of situation. But then again, they said, that they have the right to know and right to decide. We say that in this kind of situation, you need to assess, will these really become beneficial? Because later I'd like to, characterize the entire opposition, how they are very idealistic to simply paint all human beings like Japanese, that they are really nice and calm when tragedy happens. Apparently, not everyone is like that. But before that, let's go on to the arguments and rebuttals provided by the previous speaker. They said that, social order will still happen because the nature of human beings is that we are very sympathetic, that we're afraid of the same, effects that it might happen actually to us. We don't think that's true to everyone. We think that people, that's why we have criminals, that's why we have stupid people, that's why we have all of these laws and regulations that we set in the society, because we know that people aren't like that, right? So basically what we're saying is, we're going to aggravate the situation, knowing now that people would be thinking that, oh, since it's the end of the world anyway, they would be busy maybe to have a meaningful life, maybe I can do something else. But then again, that would actually create a chaotic situation. And then last response coming from them was that, the state don't own people. That's why they need to inform them. I didn't really hear any explanation on this. But I agree, they don't own these citizens, but they own it to the citizen to ensure that there would be security, to ensure that it won't be chaotic. Because at the end, we question whether or not human beings will have a motivation actually to be whatever they want to characterize the human being. We've already characterized you coming from the government side that the moment when it comes to situations like this, we always characterize government that they should always make sure that safety and security would be preserved in the present situation. That was the case of Taeyeong. Because according to him, there would be two case scenarios that would happen, assuming that we would actually disclose it. We agree, people might live a meaningful life, but then again, there would be other people who won't. The question is, if these two case scenario happens, because this is not a sub-zero game, both will happen, we don't think those people who would want to live a meaningful life will be able to do so. Because there would always be stupid and criminal people who would distract them. At the end, what we're saying is, it would be very chaotic. We don't want this kind of situation. Now let's go to the second issue. Let's talk about, the nature of human being and how they would actually react. Because according to them, that human beings will not do whatever NC have discussed in his case. They won't commit crime. Because according to them, they're actually good. But then again, I think this kind of response was very contradictory, where in fact the POI conceded that people would react subjectively. So why are you now saying that we all human beings are really good? As much as I want to believe, that's not the reality. That the people will not become when it comes to this kind of situation. Despite the fact that we said that there might be hope, we didn't really mean that this would be this would be the kind of mentality that would have. What we're saying is we want to keep this a secret because maybe the government and those people in the position will be able to find ways to do it. We think that other people will have the same capacity, but it's better left to them. That's the kind of hope discussion that we wanted to achieve. Something that was taken out of context by the entire, opposition side. Now then, they talk about, that we need to do this because it would end conflicts. That ethnicity and political differences and religious differences will be solved because now they will become nice to everyone. That's highly idealistic. I didn't really hear an explanation of this, but nonetheless, in the present situation, Catholics, Christians, we've been talking about end of the world, but are we really becoming nice to other religion? Are we really becoming nice to other people? There's even an issue of political, identity politics. We hate them because we want to believe that we are right. These kind of situation does not provide any reasoning for people to be nice. And then lastly, they ask the question, how do you live a meaningful life then if you don't allow them to know this? I think this is very bigoted because I think right now I'm living a very meaningful life. I don't need to know that that the world would end in order for me to live a meaningful life. That's why we think it's better to keep it a secret because at the end of the day, people, whatever they're doing right now is actually meaningful already. We think that what you're going to do, if you're simply going to inform them, is that you're going to disrupt that and that won't necessarily provide any good situation. Now let's look into how did we actually characterize, after this, how do we actually characterize human being? Because we've already given you the practical, the most realistic way on NC's case. But before anything else, yes?
Now, maybe people might want to know this information, even if it might increase the risk for them being victims of crime. Why can the state generalize people's decision, even though people's decision might differ?
Because the state was elected to make sure that you don't simply prioritize those minorities. We want to prioritize the safety of the entire people because you've even conceded that there might be crime and stupid things that would happen. That's why state must still do their thing. We've characterized to you that human being is the present situation is that we are actually run most of the time of pride and honor, that we want to be remembered, that we want to be written in the history, right? That we want to create legacies. This is the argument of NC, that we always wanted to be remembered. That's why we are doing good things, so that when we go back, we have stories to tell our children that, I was like this when I was in college, I was like that when I was actually debating. The thing is, now that you would actually tell them that the world was gonna end, there would be no motivation anymore for them to do good. There would be no reason for them to create all of these legacies. That's why the conclusion coming from the government side was mostly, sophisticated enough to tell you that that people would become now chaotic because they don't have motivation anymore. Because their motivation is to create legacies and whatnot. Without those things, we think it becomes chaotic. So that's why at the end of the day, if you really want to analyze these particular situations, you don't simply grant, as much as I want to believe, that human being is sympathetic and nice. We need to be realistic. Yes, those people exist, and we want them to be protected in our model. That's why we want them to continue living all of these things. Because government side also consider that there are stupid people who could disrupt those lives of these people. That's why at the end of the day, if you're going really to analyze what would be the best position in this kind of things, we think that it's better for the government not to disclose all of these things because we're scared of our own very nature also of human being. Thanks.
Thank you, Galas, for his speech. Now for the opposition, I have to call upon the opposition whip, Mitsushi Ono. Can anybody hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Stopwatch. Mr. Speaker, we trust the humanity and kindness of individual. Can you rape your friend just because the end of the war is closing? End of the war is coming, Mr. Speaker. We don't think human beings are robots as they characterize in this way. We don't think human beings are a cold-blooded organism or creature as they characterize in this way. That's extremely unfair misrepresentation of the stakeholders in this debate. The reason why we can win this debate is one, the consequence as they overcare is not going to be necessarily deleterious as they characterize in this debate. The consequence will be better off under our paradigm. The second of all, even if the consequence is worse off or deleterious, Still, that's not the reason for the state to utilize the people or use the people as a battering ground to generate the social engineering or ensure the security or public or whatever social utility. That's the reason why we're going to win this debate. Based on this framework, I'm going to ventilate 3 important clash points and issues in this debate. First of all, what will be the people's reaction under their product or under our product? Second of all, what's the moral imperative the state bears in this debate? Thirdly, I'm going to talk about why the choice of individual is particularly important in a moment that people are waiting for the death. No, thank you. First of all, the reaction of people, they say, the crime will increase because people are like inherently evil, right? Because when people think that they will die anyway, people do whatever they want to do. And my deputy leader position gave me 5 rebuttals to which analysis we had insufficient attention from their side of the house. But more than that, I'm going to further illustrate people's mindset and reaction. That even the serial killer who committed massacre or killed 100,000, 10, 12 people, or 100 people, are still reflecting what they have done in the moment that they are facing or waiting for the death penalty, Mr. Speaker. I have read so many letters or documents written by the serial killers. The FBI is officially publishing those issues, and my hope is reading those FBI's publication book. But the vast majority of the serial killer is actually reflecting back or regret what they have done to society. That's all because no one is inherently evil. No one is inherently cold blood, Mr. Speaker. Even the serial killer, the most heinous criminals are reflecting or regretting what they have done to them at the moment or during the time that they are waiting for the death penalty or capital punishment, Mr. Speaker. It's more likely to occur when we consider the vast majority of ordinary people who have moral sentiment to some extent or common sense, Mr. Speaker. It's not realistic to say just because the end of war is coming, you are going to suddenly rape your friends are surrounding, Mr. Speaker. That is also related to the refutation, to the argumentation about the fear. Yes, okay, some people will be panicked or embrace fear initially, but people will accept fear at the end of the day because they have no other option but to confront, but to open their eyes in order to deal with the end of their life, Mr. Speaker. In this particular moment, the only choice left to the people is to prepare to, at the end of their life, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, rather than wasting the time by being worried about the future, it's much more meaningful to people to achieve something that they want to do before they die, Mr. Speaker. That's a natural reaction of the people. It's different from what they are thinking about in this debate. And no, thank you, no, sorry. The analogy, moreover, that even if, Mr. Speaker, even if some people commit crimes or some people go crazy, it doesn't automatically mean that we can deprive the other rest of society, the rest of population of their right to pursue or actualize individuality. For example, the state or Japanese government or any government, when the natural disaster is likely to occur, whatever tsunami or earthquake, the local government inform the residents about the risk of a natural disaster. Yes, there are some people who are stealing the products from the convenience store in those areas, but it doesn't automatically mean the state should not inform the public about the possible risk, Mr. Speaker. Just because there are some people who are taking advantage of the opportunity, it doesn't automatically mean the state can actively deprive or infringe the rights of all of the other society to know and to prepare for the end of the life, Mr. Speaker. That's the logical fallacy of their side of the house. I will take you now.
Your first speaker said that at the end of the world he would still debate. Even if we die right now without any information, don't you think that we are living a meaningful life right now?
Okay, no. We should have a time to choose what we want to really achieve, Mr. Speaker. Because this is the only time when people are really free from daily tasks or daily business, Mr. Speaker. This is the only time for people to reflect what they are living in the first place. This kind of precious or only opportunity should not be sacrificed under the name of social utility, Mr. Speaker. Moving on to the moral imperative of the state, Mr. Speaker. No, thank you. Then, new materials were brought by the VIP speaker, which says that only high-ranking members know how to deal with the situation. That's very a new material. Moreover, I don't know why, if their characterization is true, the high-ranking members are raping each other in their office, Mr. Speaker. That's their characterization. Now you can understand how unrealistic their characterizations are.
More information.
No, thank you. But on the contrary, what we have been talking about from this side of the house is the state doesn't own people. The people are not living for the society. You are not living for your government, Mr. Speaker. They are responsible to social contract. Okay, you choose your government, so why is it okay for the government to do something which is antithetical to the interest of the public, Mr. Speaker? Moreover, the government is, elected in a context where the situation is really different. The government is elected by the people in a context where there is the end of the world coming, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, their analysis is not true. Even in the most chaotic situation, the people should have a fundamental right to actualize themselves, actualize individuality. State has no right to use the people as a tool to generate social security or social utility whatsoever, especially in the best moment for the people to actualize individuality. Final argument, what kind of individual choice we are talking about, Mr. Speaker? Yes, some people do something crazy as they characterize, but for vast majority of people, this is the last moment that you can achieve something, Mr. Speaker. Maybe you have your loved girlfriend, maybe you have your loving family, maybe you want to pray for your God, Mr. Speaker. Within this particular context, why is it okay for the state to infringe your right to actualize yourself, your individuality, Mr. Speaker? This is the only time you are free from the daily task, free from any other predicament you might possibly confront in the ordinary occasion, Mr. Speaker. In this particular moment, the last kind of social right, fundamental, inalienable rights, individual embrace, Mr. Speaker. It is morally repugnant for the state to sacrifice individual as a tool of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitsushi Ono, for his speech. Now from the opposition, I'd like to invite Ryotaro Tanaka for his initial speech of the opposition.
I'm going to summarize this debate by looking at what both sides said. First, let's look at what they said. Their argument was pretty simple, right? Because of the fear, because of the crime, people are better off without knowing these kind of facts, Mr. Speaker. But to that point, Mr. Speaker, we have clearly responded. Okay, what they said. First, police will be dysfunctional. Second, well, people are going to be committing crime because human nature is evil. Mr. Speaker, to first point, Mr. Speaker, we have responded. The example of how self-defense force of Japan, bravely went into the area despite the fact that their life can be threatened. The only response was the reason why they are not functioning very well was legacy. They want to demand legacy. That is not the case, Mr. Speaker. The reason was they are very proud of their job, and we believe that these people are going to function very well. Now, secondly, Mr. Speaker, they say, well, social order is going to be disrupted because people are going to do whatever they like to do, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's kind of pitiful of how pessimistic view they have about human nature, right, Mr. Speaker? I wonder what happened to their life, Mr. Speaker. But what we have shown to you is that most human being is not such evil. As my partner has explained, in the time of earthquake, people share the food, people cooperate with each other. We believe the majority of people will not do such thing as killing other people and so forth, Mr. Speaker. We believe in majority of cases that kind of criminal scenario will happen. And they might say, yes, we agree that some people in society are very bad people. They are criminal gangs. But we have shown to you that even criminal gang has an incentive to spend the last time in a way that does not cause harm to society, right? First of all, I have explained what is the incentive of criminal gang, Mr. Speaker. The reason why criminal gangs are committing crime is because they can retain that benefit for the future. If that assumption does not stand. This criminal gang is not likely to commit a crime. Now, second of all, Mr. Speaker, my partner and I will be consistently saying that even criminal gang will regret in the face of death, right, Mr. Speaker? That's why we have death penalty ultimately, right? The reason why we have death penalty that we want these serial killers to regret before the death, right, Mr. Speaker? Because we believe that in majority of the cases, even these criminal gangs, maybe because of religious reason, or maybe because they sincerely regret what they have done, will regret what they have done, and will not do such a stupid thing as using guns to kill other people. There is no incentive for them to do so. And the final reason we provided that even these criminal gangs do have an incentive to spend their last time with their family member, Mr. Speaker. Yes, there might be some criminal gangs who are completely isolated from society, but these criminal gangs do have friends, do have family, and do have something that they like to do. For example, so we believe that these criminal gangs will not do such kind of things, Mr. Speaker. And on top of that, Mr. Speaker, my partner clearly explained how crime will rather decrease, right? Because this proposal will create a massive incentive for religious leader or a criminal gang to stop fighting each other for small reason, Mr. Speaker. This proposal will provide these individuals to reflect upon their life and fulfill their individuality. So we believe that their harm does not stand. And moreover, Mr. Speaker, even if we agree that their harm do stand, some people commit crimes, Mr. Speaker, that cannot be a reason to take away the majority of people's fundamental right to spend their last time, Mr. Speaker. We believe that these people do have right to spend how they end their life, Mr. Speaker. State cannot use the tool, use the individual as a tool. What we have provided, we have clearly explained to you even how state cannot make this sweeping generalization, Mr. Speaker, because it should be up to the citizens to decide how they are going to deal with the last time situation, right, Mr. Speaker? States cannot make that sweeping generation. It is extremely wrong. And what we have told you more is that in majority of the cases, in this case, the state sweeping generalization that states should make is that it's better for citizens to know, because we believe that in majority of the cases, these citizens want to spend their last time with their family member or praying for God or spend their loved one or debating, Mr. Speaker. So we believe under their model, these people are going to lose the precious opportunity to pray for God and spend last time they were with their friend, and that is extremely problematic. And for these reasons, we are very proud to propose.
Mr. Speaker, maybe I'm a little bit pessimistic. The reason why I have to be pessimistic, because my last day, I don't want to make that as gamble, right? Because they never prove people is going to vote 100%, right? Maybe there's 50-50, 80-20, 70-30, 60-40, maybe. But the thing is, we don't want to make a gambles, right? Because that is exactly the same ideas. Government never disclose information about national security. Like you said, I think it is a very bad strategy movement, right? They said sometimes government can, close the information, not close, hide the information, right? Then it is very same. It is very subjective. People can have a choice. Maybe some people react really in a nice way, but we don't disclose it because government and society don't want to make that as a gamble. Because at the end of the day, in that situation, people might be dead. And in our situation, our precious last day might be ruined by some crazy people on the street. With that, I have 3 questions in today's debate, right? First, responsibility of the government. Second, ideas about who is going to be on the street. The last idea is about what is the meaningful of life, because no response whatsoever. First, responsibility of the government. Like I said, government do this every time, right? They didn't contend that idea. So I safely assume that they accept that idea. But suddenly they say, we can't in this situation without any deeper analysis, right? Then we say there is contradictions. But there is a social contract. Government must provide the safety of the society. That is why it is legitimate choices. Government can deal with this situation because we might have bad situation. The second idea is who is going to be on the street, right? We said there might be bad people, there might be good people on the homes, right? I never say there's 100%. Maybe there's a 50 and 50. That is why general is not going to rape each other, because we choose right one on that places. If we don't, then we will fuck, right? So I don't think that is the case. Then why this is the problem made? People don't making a crime first because there's a legacy. Second, because I want to develop my society, right? And I want to move on. And thirdly, I'm afraid of punishment. No response whatsoever. The only response coming from that, everybody like a Jesus, right? I don't harm the other people because I must be nice. I don't think that is the specific, enough explanation, to like persuade you people is going to be better. Maybe that's not, maybe that's true. But what about these Christian people on the street? We said there's a second problem, right? Maybe people can share their meaningful experience with their families. But these people's meaningful experience is going to be violated by the people who are crazy on the street, because these people is going to harm these people, right? Lastly, these people trembling under the pain and trembling under the ideas, they will die within 2 minutes. They see the clock and, oh, I have 1 hour. I have 50 minutes. This kind of situation, I don't think there will be any meaningful situations, right? We give you the analogy, right? Because people who might be dead with the cancer, they can have a meaningful life because family makes them safe. Family provides them safe ideas, and they can share memory and legacy within that family. But in this situation, it is not going to be happening. Then there's second speakers, we can end the conflict. I think this is really not a good idea. The end of the world, everybody knows, but religion fight each other. If this is my life purpose, I need to kill my, mommy's, killer, then I'm going to kill him and I'm going to kill myself. Because it's more important than my life. The conflict is not going to be end. The last idea, what is the meaningful life? I don't think you guys can make suggestions and make a value judgment. People's meaningful life is not right now. Like your first speaker said, maybe I can debate and I die and we can discuss this issue in the heavens. Then maybe this is a meaningful life. Then just panicking and running through your families. Oh, we might be dead. What are we going to do? Shake hands and say, oh no, we have 1 hour. I don't think there is a meaningful life. Everybody having a meaningful life right now. That is why you shouldn't have a value judgment. You have to know about the meaningful life because you will dead. I don't think that is a good idea. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy now. That is why I can be dead. That is why I'm having a meaningful life.
Thank you, Namchul Kim, for his speech. Now all the speech is over. Everyone, please again give them a round of applause to both the teams. Excellent debate.